Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Real quick, we're going to be filming a brand new, I'm doing this tomorrow night. We're going to have a monthly series on finding, sometimes it may be crappie, sometimes it may be bass. We're going to break down lakes. We're going to do this tomorrow with a crappie guide. And we're going to break down techniques, tackle, guide, Livescope techniques. And we're going to put this all together monthly. So as the seasons change, it will help you find fish on your local body of water. This is a one-of-a-kind podcast. Nobody else does this. We're going to be doing some stuff with the hunting, but for guys on this channel, it's all about fishing, finding crappie, finding bass, and how guides and pros break it down to find them on their specific body of water or any specific body of water at that. We'll be explaining so much. And also we're going to have a discussion each month on a series of Livescope settings and get different perspectives from just myself, guides, regular everyday weekend warriors, and we'll put it all together to try to come up with the best information for you. But in today's video, really great video, I've been wanting to do this video for a long time, is some common myths that I see associated. I see this all the time, and I see so much misinformation on the channel, not just our channel. Our channel is really probably the most knowledgeable out there, but even then we get it wrong, and I see it a lot on the other channels. Let's go through. I've got about 5 or 6 here. We can do hundreds, but I want to do just 5 or 6. Let's talk about them and let's go with and work through some of these things. The number one thing I see is people talking about gain. When you make a gain adjustment, it does not adjust how the signal from the transducer comes out. The transducer puts out a pulse, receives a pulse or a sound wave similar to ultrasound, and then that is captured, sent from the black box up to the unit. The adjustments like gain and noise filter and all those things, they are not done before the signal is sent out. It's done after the signal is sent out, and those are how the image is interpreted up onto the screen. So if you adjust your gain to make it more sensitive, it doesn't send out a different signal in the water. What it does, it just adjusts how much is shown on the screen. Just for example, if you put a noise rejection, a raw image is up there. You could actually pause the image and adjust the filters up and down. That's done after the signal is received. So it's not done. So a lot of people think that it's adjusting what the signal goes out. No, it doesn't. The only thing that adjusts power in your signal is going to be depth. And then that starts to change the frequency. And that's why I like to set mine 5 to 8 feet below. And what that does is kind of fools it into thinking you're in deeper water, so it it doesn't have the real high frequency. It lowers it down a little bit, helps clear up the image a little bit by default. And so the next one we're going to go off, number 2, focus. I have posted I have several great videos with almost, I think, 50,000-60,000 views on them, but very few people understand focus a whole lot in the focus of the beams. It's not going to, if you got a blurry image, it's not going to change that image. What it does is an alignment of beams. Now, we have one where we talk about this, but one thing more than anything that I see is when somebody asks for a series of settings, any settings whatsoever, they'll put, gain 65, and that's a great starting point and all the starting points. And then they'll put something like focus 148. Focus is specific to each individual unit. 148 may not work on my unit. 148 may not work on my image the way it works on your particular unit. Each unit displays the image up there. It's taking 6 beams and it's trying to line them up the best you can, and you're taking that focus and fine-tuning it. Different for each unit, each specific unit at that. You may line it up on one unit and it may not line up on the other. I've seen this happen so many times. So it's specific to the units. All right, updates. When you see an update, so many people that go, hey, is this update good for the 32 or is it good for the 34? The update is specific to the black box. It has nothing to do with the transducer. Now, I know that when the 34 came out, they made an update, and that made it compatible with the 34, and it made it receive the information from the 34. But when they put out an update, it's not specific to a 34 or a 32 or things like that. Some of them tend to show, like I still love 26 2.57 and the 19 or 20 and the 2.57 2.58 for the echo maps. I think those tend to work better with the 32 and the 34, but they are not specific to transducers. They're specific to the black box. They're fixes within the black box. That'd be the 2.57 or 2.75, and then the other one is specific to fixing problems or improvements to the unit. Has nothing to do with the actual transducer. That's something that, there's common myth. Now let's go to the next one, number 4. So many people, and I know I'm going to get 1,000 people go on this. Oh, I've never hooked up a disconnect switch and it's never drained my battery. I can prove it if you'd like me to, and pull up my app, turn off all the units, and pull up my app for my ionic batteries and watch there be an amp drawing, an amp draw. It'll have a slight amp draw. The moment you kill that disconnect switch, and my electronics are hooked up through a disconnect switch, they're the only things on it. The moment you kill it, it kills the amp draw off the batteries. It's slight, it's small, but based on how long you leave your units unused or off of the battery charger, especially lead acid batteries, you could be having some problems where you show up to the lake and there's no power for you to power your Livescope. So disconnect switch or remotes. And I also suggest a very high quality. Do not go down there and get a toggle switch. They'll work, but they start to rust. Get you a good Perco switch or something like that that's got some, that's made for the marine environment, that doesn't rust. It's the best thing. Trust me, I've tried toggle switch. I've tried them all. Good marine disconnect switch. It's covered in many of my videos. That's important. Things like that. One of the biggest questions we get is there a discernible difference between a 12 volt and a 16 volt? Now, the way this was explained to me, and I hope I say this correctly, there's not a ton of difference in a 12 and 16 volt. I have never seen a difference, but what you get is a more consistent flow of amperage. Higher voltage equals more amps equals a better running unit. So does actual 12 volt or 16 volt? No. Higher voltage equals more amps, so you get a less, the wires, they don't get as hot, and so that you get a cooler running unit. A cooler running unit is going to last for the life of the unit longer, and essentially could be a clear unit. So does it? Connor Nimrod with Tournament and Technologies, he says that running the 16 volt gives you higher amperage. So in effect, over the long run, it will give you a better picture and longer life in your units and in your black box and things like that. So that's a good thing to know. Last thing, we'll talk about this too. A lot of people ask about lead acid batteries versus, and you hear a lot of people, well, I've been running a lead acid battery forever. Lead acid versus lithium batteries. And there's a couple reasons I think. For forever and ever, we ran lead acid, when we first started, it was lead acid batteries, dedicated wiring. And what I have found with lithium batteries, they are less susceptible to interference. So, a lot of, like, I used to have a dedicated battery. Now my electronics run through my starting battery. They come off, they go to a disconnect switch to a fuse panel in that box labeled, and then they branch off with the appropriate size wire. Tournament Technologies, I don't know this formula, but he has a formula, a computer program that tells which size wire is appropriate for each unit to go to them and provide the appropriate amount of power. It's just not a blanket deal. It says 8 grade or 10 grade. You need to watch that video. It's a very informative video on it. So I always suggest lithium batteries if you can afford them, but if you're going to go lead acid batteries, you need to isolate as much as you can and get the largest lead acid battery you can get, because the voltage is in a steady decline in lead acid batteries. Less voltage, less amps, and so the problems start. Lithium stay at a very high voltage consistently, so provide more consistent amps. The units will run better and smoother, therefore less interference, less susceptible to interference. And this is just some of the stuff that I have found over the last few years. Guys, thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. Ring the bell.